Across the galaxy, Earth was known as calm and distant. It was not famous for grand speeches or endless wars. It did not send threats across space or paint its ships in bright colors. Earth simply existed, steady and quiet, like a deep ocean that showed little on the surface. Captain Alan Reed had heard the story since his first days among the stars. He had laughed at them back then. Now, after 20 years of travel, he no longer laughed. Alan stood on the observation deck of his ship, the Wayfarer, looking out at a busy trade station that floated between 3-star systems. Hundreds of ships moved slowly around it, lights blinking like fireflies in the dark. This place was neutral ground where many species met to trade, talk, and rest. It was loud, crowded, and full of life. Yet every time Earth came up in conversation, something strange happened. Alan noticed it again as he walked through the central market. The air was filled with soft hums, translated voices, and the low sound of engines far away. Traders called out prices. Cargo drones moved past him. Everything felt normal. Then a merchant spoke the word Earth. The sound around them dipped just slightly. A few nearby traders paused. Some turned their heads. Others lowered their voices. It was never sudden or obvious. It was more like a shared habit learned long ago. Alan stopped near a stall run by a tall, blue-skinned trader named Vela. Not a name, but a translated sound close enough for humans. He had dealt with her many times. Fuel cells arrived late this cycle, Vela said, her voice calm. Alan nodded. Supply routes are crowded. Vela's eyes shifted, glancing past him. Yes. Ever since Earth increased patrols near the inner lanes. Alan raised an eyebrow. Increased patrols? I hadn't heard. Vela leaned closer and lowered her voice. Most things about Earth are not announced. That was another thing. Earth rarely explained itself. Alan paid for the fuel cells and stepped away, but her words stayed with him. As he moved through the market, he paid closer attention. He noticed how some traders avoided talking about Earth at all. Others spoke of it carefully, choosing simple words, like someone handling fragile glass. Later, back on the Wayfarer, Alan met with his first officer, Maya Collins. She was reviewing trade logs at the central table, her dark hair tied back, her eyes sharp as always. Did you notice the market today? Alan asked. Maya looked up. Let me guess. People went quiet again when Earth came up. Alan nodded. Why do you think that is? Maya leaned back in her chair. People fear loud threats. But they fear quiet answers more. Alan smiled slightly. That sounds like something from a history book. History books exist for a reason, she replied. Alan had grown up on Earth. To him it had always felt crowded, noisy, and full of arguments. Nations disagreed. People protested. News channels never stopped talking. It never felt calm. But seen from far away, Earth was different. Earth did not expand fast. It did not take worlds just because it could. Human colonies grew slowly, carefully, often with long debates before a single ship launched. Many alien powers had laughed at this. They had called humans weak, divided, and unsure. That laughter had faded. The Wayfarer received clearance to dock overnight. Alan stood alone later, looking out at the stars. He thought about his early days as a pilot when Earth ships were treated like any other. Back then, no one lowered their voice. Something had changed. A memory surfaced from years ago. Alan had been younger, less careful. He had asked an old alien captain why Earth had such a strange reputation. The captain had been silent for a long time before answering. Because your people remember, the old captain had said. And because you do not forget quietly. At the time, Alan had not understood. The next morning, the station hosted a council meeting between several trading species. Earth was not present, but its name came up again and again. Shipping routes near human space were safer. Pirate attacks dropped sharply near Earth-controlled lanes. Conflicts ended faster when human observers arrived. Alan listened from a distance, pretending not to care. He noticed how often speakers chose their words carefully when mentioning humans. No one accused Earth of cruelty. No one praised it as heroic. They simply treated it like a fact of nature. Later, Alan met an old friend, Thomas Gray, another human captain. They shared a drink in a quiet corner of the station. Feels strange, doesn't it? Thomas said. What does? Being the quiet ones everyone watches. Alan nodded. Do you ever wonder why? Thomas took a slow sip. Not really. I served near the outer colonies during the Kellen dispute. Alan looked at him sharply. You never told me that. Not much to tell, Thomas said. There was a threat. Talks failed. Earth stepped in. No speeches. No grand show. Just results. What kind of results? Thomas met his eyes. The kind no one wants repeated. They sat in silence after that. As the wayfarer prepared to depart, Alan reviewed a report that had come through public channels. A distant species had vanished from several trade records. Not destroyed, not conquered, just gone. Their systems were empty. Their signals silent. No cause listed. Alan scrolled past it at first, then paused. He noticed something odd. The disappearance had happened near human space. Not inside it. Near it. Maya noticed his expression. You thinking what I'm thinking? That this isn't an accident? She nodded. But also that no one is accusing Earth. Because no one needs to, Alan said quietly. The ship lifted off smoothly, leaving the station behind. As stars stretched into lines, Alan felt a familiar mix of pride and unease. Earth had not changed its ways. Humans still argued, still doubted, still struggled. But when pushed, humanity became something else. Not loud, not cruel, just impossible to ignore. Far behind them, the trade station returned to its noise and motion. Traders resumed their work. Deals were made. Stories were shared. But somewhere in every mind, the same unspoken rule remained. Do not test the quiet world. Because Earth did not shout its warnings. It waited. And it remembered. The ruling council of the Kareth Union had ruled its space for a very long time. Their cities were old, their fleets were large, and their history books were filled with victories. To them, strength meant numbers, speed, and control. Anything else was weakness. Humans, by their measure, were weak. The council chamber floated above their homeworld, a wide ring of glass and metal that looked down on the planet below. Stars shone through the clear walls. 12 council members sat in silence as a tall figure spoke from the center. They argue among themselves, the speaker said. They delay decisions. They debate instead of acting. A low sound of agreement passed through the chamber. They grow slowly, another council member added. They hesitate. They do not strike first. The council leader leaned forward. Then they are fragile. The word settled heavily in the room. Fragile things broke when pressure was applied. The decision was made quickly after that. Far away in human space, Commander Lena Brooks stood in a quiet briefing room on an Earth defense station. The room was plain. A simple table. Soft lights. No banners or symbols. Just people and screens. Lena listened as the message played again. This is the ruling council of the Kareth Union. Earth will submit its outer systems to our control. All human military presence will withdraw. Compliance will ensure peace. Refusal will result in removal. The message ended without emotion. No shouting. No threats spoken loudly. Just cold certainty. Around the table sat a small group of officers and advisors. No one spoke right away. Lena watched their faces. Some looked tired. Others calm. A few thoughtful. She folded her hands on the table. Is that all? Yes, said Paul Evans, a fleet analyst. No countdown. No follow-up message. Lena nodded. They think we'll rush to answer. Or panic, someone else said. Lena did not smile. She had seen many threats in her career. This one was clean and simple. That made it dangerous. What's the council's recommendation? Paul asked. Lena stood and walked to the window. Earth hung below them, blue and white, peaceful from this distance. Traffic moved in slow, careful lines. Nothing looked like a world preparing for war. We don't answer, she said. A few heads turned. Not at all? Asked Sarah Lynn, a communications officer. Lena shook her head. Not yet. The room stayed quiet. Silence is an answer, Lena continued. And it's the one they don't expect. Across the galaxy, the Kareth Council waited. Hours passed. Then days. No reply came from Earth. At first, the council was amused. They are afraid, one member said. They are arguing. They will submit, another said. They always do. But as time went on, the amusement faded. Scouts reported unusual movement near human space. Not fleets gathering but traffic shifting. Civilian ships changing routes. Supply lines adjusting quietly. They are preparing to flee, a council member said. Or to hide, said another. The council leader nodded. Then we will remind them who we are. A second message was sent. Shorter than the first. Final notice. Still, Earth remained silent. Lena watched the reports flow in. Colonies were evacuating at a steady pace. Not rushed. Not chaotic. Families moved with planned schedules. Supplies were stored. Stations adjusted orbits. No public speeches were made. No panic spread across news channels. Life continued. That worried her more than fear ever could. She met with her team again. They'll attack soon, Paul said. Yes, Lena replied. They need a reaction. Why not answer them now? Sarah asked. Even just to delay. Lena looked at her. Because delay is what they want. They want us talking while they move. She paused. Silence forces them to guess. On the Kareth homeworld, guessing led to frustration. They insult us, one council member snapped. They pretend we do not exist. The council leader raised a hand. No. They are watching. That thought did not sit well with the room. Orders were given. Kareth fleets moved toward the edges of human-controlled space. Their ships were large and sharp-edged, built for quick strikes and heavy fire. They had won many wars like this before. Fast attacks. Broken enemies. They expected resistance. They did not expect emptiness. Human border systems were quiet. Stations powered down or abandoned. Mining fields empty. No fleets waiting. No defenses firing. Where are they? A Kareth commander asked over secure channels. No answer came. The first shots were fired anyway. Empty stations were destroyed. Silent satellites crushed. The attacks were broadcast across Kareth space as proof of power. Still, Earth said nothing. Lena stood in the command center as reports arrived. She did not flinch. They've crossed the line, Paul said. Yes, Lena replied. Now they're committed. What if we're wrong? Sarah asked quietly. Lena met her eyes. Then history will judge us. But I don't think we are. She remembered something her mentor had once told her. Never rush to explain yourself to someone who already thinks they're right. Days passed. The Kareth fleets pushed deeper. Their supply lines stretched. Their scouts reported strange patterns, human ships appearing briefly, then vanishing. Systems losing power without visible attacks. Communication delays growing longer. They are avoiding direct battle, a Kareth commander reported. They are running, another said. But doubt had begun to spread. On Earth, people watched the news with calm faces. Schools stayed open. Work continued. There were no speeches calling for unity. No calls for revenge. Just quiet preparation. Lena received a secure message from Earth's Central Command. It contained only one line. Continue. She closed the message and looked around the room. That's all. Paul exhaled slowly. So we still don't answer them. No, Lena said. Not yet. The Kareth Council finally lost patience. They refused to speak, one member said. Then we will force them. A full invasion order was signed. As the fleets advanced, something changed. Human ships began to appear, not in large groups but in small, precise movements. Supply convoys vanished. Navigation beacons failed. Entire Kareth wings found themselves stranded without fuel or guidance. Still no message came from Earth. The silence grew heavy. Lena watched the tactical map as Kareth formations thinned. They wanted fear, she said softly. Instead, they got uncertainty. And uncertainty, she knew, was the one thing no empire handled well. Far across the galaxy, traders and observers noticed the same pattern they had seen before. When Earth was threatened, it did not shout. It did not rush to explain or defend itself. It waited. And in that waiting, the challenge had already begun. The first strike came without warning but not without signs. Long before the alien fleets crossed into human border space, the colonies closest to the edge had already begun to change. On the surface, life looked normal. Lights still glowed in windows. Farms continued to run. Stations kept their rotation steady. But beneath that calm, every system was moving with quiet purpose. On the colony of Ridgepoint, engineer Mark Hale stood inside a cargo bay that once carried food and mining tools. Now it was filled with spare hull plates, power units, and stacked crates of supplies. The air smelled of metal and coolant. Last transport leaves in 4 hours, a technician said, checking a tablet. Mark nodded. Plenty of time. No one rushed. No one shouted. The evacuation plan had been practiced for years, revised again and again, always treated as routine. Families had packed days ago. Children had been told it was a long trip, not an escape. When the first alien ships appeared on long-range sensors, Ridgepoint was already emptying. Mark moved through the station checking final systems. He paused at a wide viewport. Outside, civilian ships drifted into careful formation. Cargo haulers. Old transport vessels. Even private freighters owned by families who had lived here for generations. None of them were armed. Yet they moved with purpose. Mark, came a voice over his headset. Fleet Command wants an update. This is Hale, he replied. Conversion is complete. Civilian ships are ready. Understood. Begin Phase 2. Mark closed his eyes for a moment, then exhaled. Phase 2 meant the line was crossed. The alien attack began an hour later. Their ships arrived fast and loud, weapons charged, sensors wide. They expected alarms, fleeing vessels, scattered resistance. They expected chaos. They found silence. The colony's defense platforms powered down the moment the first shot was fired. Empty stations took direct hits, breaking apart in bright flashes. The attackers broadcast the destruction as proof of victory. But there were no screams on open channels. No desperate messages. The alien commanders were confused, but they pushed forward. Then the civilian ships moved. Cargo haulers slid into the paths of incoming fire, absorbing impacts with reinforced hulls Mark and his team had installed. Old transports unfolded hidden panels, revealing energy dispersal grids. Supply ships formed moving barriers blocking angles of attack. These aren't warships, an alien officer reported. But they're not retreating. Mark watched from a remote console aboard a human support vessel. He felt every hit like a punch to the chest even though he was safe. Every ship out there carried people he had worked with. Friends. Families. They're holding, a nearby officer said. Mark nodded. They're supposed to. The idea had been simple. Humans could not outgun the alien fleets at the border. But they could slow them. They could absorb the first blow. They could buy time. The civilian ships did not fight. They endured. Behind them, evacuation fleets slipped away through pre-planned routes, jumping system by system. Supplies flowed smoothly. Medical ships followed. No lane was overloaded. No system collapsed. On the alien flagship, frustration grew. They should be breaking, a commander said. They're using civilians as shields. No, another replied slowly. They're using civilians as structure. That distinction mattered. Human ships rotated positions when damaged. Fresh hulls took the front. Damaged ones fell back to be repaired or replaced. No ship stayed exposed too long. No formation stayed still. Mark coordinated repairs remotely, sending instructions and rerouting power. Civilian engineers followed calmly, executing tasks they had trained for but hoped never to use. A transport lost power and drifted. Another ship moved instantly to cover it. Drones swarmed, sealing breaches, reinforcing weak points. The alien fleets advanced but slowly. Much slower than planned. Meanwhile, human military ships stayed hidden. They did not engage. They watched. On a distant command station, Commander Lena Brooks studied the live feeds. She saw the civilian line bend but not break. They're doing well, someone said. They're doing exactly what we asked, Lena replied. Casualties. Lower than projected. Lena nodded. Good. The alien commanders finally ordered a focused assault. They concentrated fire on one section of the civilian line, determined to punch through. Mark saw the energy readings spike. All ships shift left, he ordered. Rotate shields. The formation adjusted smoothly. Power flowed where was needed. The impact shattered several hull plates but the line held. An alien cruiser pushed forward, trying to force a gap. That was when the first human warship appeared. It emerged from behind a civilian hauler, weapons silent at first. Then, with precise timing, it fired, not to destroy but to disable. The alien cruiser's engines failed. It drifted, helpless. More human ships followed, striking only where needed, pulling back before the enemy could focus on them. The aliens realized too late that the civilian line was not a weakness. It was a trap. They're not defending territory, an alien officer said. They're defending movement. Supplies kept flowing. People stayed safe. Time passed. Hours turned into days. Each system fell back slowly, deliberately. Every retreat cost the attackers fuel, ships, and patience. Mark barely slept. He moved from console to console, coordinating repairs, adjusting routes, solving problems as they appeared. He felt fear, yes, but it never ruled him. At one point, a young technician looked at him with wide eyes. They're stronger than us, she said. Mark shook his head. They're faster. That's not the same. The alien fleets pushed deeper, but the pattern repeated. Empty colonies. Prepared defenses. Civilian ships that refused to break. Human military strikes that hit supply lines instead of front lines. Across the galaxy, observers watched the reports with growing interest. This isn't panic, one trader said. It's planning. Another nodded. They're losing ground but gaining control. On the front lines, alien commanders argued. Their losses were not catastrophic, but they were constant. Repairs took longer. Crews grew tired. Supply routes stretched thin. And still Earth said nothing. Mark watched one last evacuation jump succeed before the civilian line finally withdrew. The ships turned together, moving as one, slipping away before the enemy could react. The first strike ended not with a decisive victory, but with confusion. The border colonies were gone. Not destroyed. Not captured. Simply empty. Humanity had not panicked. It had adapted. And for the first time the attackers began to wonder if the silence they faced was not weakness at all, but patience. The war did not change shape. It stretched. That was the part the alien fleets did not expect. Weeks passed after the first strikes and still there was no final battle. No massive human counterattack. No loud declaration from Earth. The front lines moved but only a little at a time. Every advance the aliens made seemed to cost them more than it should. Pilot Sarah Quinn felt the weight of that slow grind every time she climbed into her fighter. Her ship was small, built for speed and endurance rather than power. Its hull bore marks from past repairs, each one carefully sealed and reinforced. She ran her checks with steady hands, the routine familiar and calming. "Flight group ready," she said into the comm. "Copy that," came the calm reply. Same pattern as before. Sarah knew the pattern well. Move in fast. Strike only where needed. Pull back before the enemy could respond. Never stay long enough to be trapped. She launched into the dark and joined the rest of her group. Around her, human ships moved like a school of fish, spreading out, then closing ranks again. There was no rush. No wasted motion. Ahead, the alien fleet filled the void with heavy shapes and sharp angles. Their formations were tight, rigid, designed for clear commands and direct force. It had worked for them in many wars. It worked less well now. Sarah watched as alien ships adjusted their positions, trying to respond to threats that appeared and vanished too quickly to track. Their comm traffic was full of questions, corrections, repeated orders. "They're confused," her wingmate said. "They've been confused for days," Sarah replied. She dove toward a damaged alien support ship, fired a short burst and pulled away. The shot disabled its repair drones. Nothing dramatic. Nothing final. But it mattered. Human fleets did not aim to break the enemy in one blow. They aimed to wear them down. Every damaged ship forced the aliens to slow. Every delay stretched their supply lines. Every repair took time they did not have. Behind the front lines, human crews worked without pause. Repair bays stayed active around the clock. Damaged ships were patched, reinforced, and sent back out faster than the aliens thought possible. Engineers shared fixes across the fleet in real time. A solution found in one battle appeared everywhere else within hours. Sarah landed briefly between sorties. Her ship was already being worked on by the time she stepped out. "Fuel topped off," a technician said. "Hull's good. Minor scoring only." "That was fast," Sarah said. The technician shrugged. "We've had practice." She was airborne again minutes later. On the alien side, exhaustion crept in quietly. Crews worked longer shifts. Spare parts grew scarce. Commanders argued over changing plans that never seemed to work. "They won't stand and fight," one alien officer complained. "They won't run either," another replied. That was the worst part. The humans refused to quit. Sarah saw it in every engagement. Even when human ships took damage, they came back. Even when pushed back, they returned stronger, better prepared. She remembered a moment during a long patrol, when her sensors picked up an alien formation drifting out of alignment. Ships lagged behind. Signals crossed and repeated. "They're tired," her wingmate said softly. "Yes," Sarah replied. "And we're not." It wasn't because humans didn't feel fear or pain. They did. Sarah felt it every time she lost a friend, every time she saw a ship fail to jump away in time. But humans rested in shifts. They rotated crews. They planned for long fights because deep down they believed most fights were long. The aliens had planned for a fast victory. As weeks turned into months, the galaxy began to notice. Trade routes adjusted. Neutral stations tracked the same battle zones lighting up again and again. Reports spread of alien fleets stalling, of human ships appearing in unexpected places. "They're not winning," one observer said. "But they're not losing either." Another replied, "That might be worse." Sarah flew escort on a repair convoy one cycle, guarding ships that carried spare parts and fuel. The convoy moved slowly, deliberately. Alien scouts appeared on sensors but did not attack. "They're watching us," her wingmate said. "They've been watching for a while," Sarah replied. The convoy reached its destination without incident. Human ships returned to the front stronger than before. On an alien command ship, a tired officer studied the same data again and again. Human losses rose and fell but never spiked. Alien losses crept upward, steady and unavoidable. They learn every time, the officer said. They don't repeat mistakes. That scared him more than any weapon. One battle stood out to Sarah more than the rest. The aliens attempted a large formation push, trying to overwhelm a human defense line with sheer numbers. Human ships fell back at first. Slowly. Carefully. The alien commanders thought they were finally breaking through. Then the humans turned. Not all at once. In layers. Fighters struck from the sides. Support ships cut off supply craft. Repair vessels pulled damaged fighters out and replaced them with fresh ones. The alien formation lost shape. Orders overlapped. Ships collided or drifted out of position. Sarah flew through the chaos, heart pounding, senses sharp. They're falling apart, her wingmate said. They're exhausted, Sarah replied. The aliens retreated. Again. After that, something changed. Alien attacks became less aggressive. Their movements cautious. Their formations looser, less confident. They had learned to fear traps where no traps were visible. Humans pressed gently, never rushing. The galaxy watched this strange war unfold. There were no grand victories to celebrate. No single battle to mark as the turning point. Instead there was endurance. Humans stayed. Humans adapted. Humans refused to quit. Sarah returned to base after another long sortie. She sat on the wing of her fighter, helmet resting beside her, staring at the stars. Do you think they'll give up? Her wingmate asked, sitting nearby. Sarah thought for a moment. I think they'll realize this isn't the kind of war they know how to win. Far away, alien commanders reached the same conclusion, though none dared say it out loud. Earth still had not spoken. But its message was clear in every repaired hull, every careful retreat, every quiet return to battle. The galaxy was paying attention now. And it was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest strength was not speed or firepower. It was the simple, stubborn decision to endure longer than anyone else. The end did not come near Earth. That alone confused many who later studied the war. For all the fighting, all the loss, the final moment happened far from the blue planet that had started it all. Earth remained quiet, distant, almost untouched. The alien fleets gathered near a distant system, one rich in resources and far from human population centers. It was meant to be a staging ground, a place where they could regroup, repair, and launch one final push. Their commanders believed that if they could force a decisive battle, the long struggle would finally end. Human commanders knew this too. From a command ship drifting at the edge of the system, Commander Lena Brooks studied the map before her. Dots of light marked alien ships, clustered tightly together. They were tired. Low on supplies. Their movements were slower now, less sure. They're cornering themselves, an officer said quietly. Yes, Lena replied. Because they don't know how to stop. The human fleet nearby was smaller, lighter, spread out in layers. No grand formation. No obvious front line. Just quiet readiness. A message was prepared. It was the first direct message Earth had sent since the ultimatum. Simple. Clear. Come. This is a human command channel. You are surrounded. Withdraw your fleets. Retreat will be permitted. No pursuit will follow. There were no threats. No demands for surrender. Just an open path away. The message was transmitted across all known alien frequencies. On the alien command ship, the bridge fell silent as the translation finished. They offer retreat, an officer said slowly. Another laughed, sharp and bitter. After all this? The alien leaders gathered in private, their voices low and tense. They have dragged us into this war, one said. They weakened us. And now they pretend mercy, another replied. It is an insult. A third spoke more carefully. They have not lied so far. That voice was ignored. Pride weighed heavier than reason. The reply was set. We do not retreat. Lena read the message without changing her expression. She closed her eyes for a moment, then nodded. So be it, she said. Human ships shifted positions. Not rushing. Not charging. The final battle did not begin with noise. It began with absence. Alien sensors flickered as navigation markers vanished. Communication relays failed one by one. Long-range scanners returned empty data, as if the space around them had grown dull and flat. What's happening? An alien officer asked. Before an answer came, supply ships reported power loss. Engines stalled. Backup systems failed to sync. Human ships appeared briefly, striking only key points, then slipping away. Not to destroy hulls but to sever connections. Fuel. Data. Coordination. The alien fleet tried to respond, but orders arrived late or not at all. Ships drifted out of formation, unable to align without guidance. Human commanders did not press close. They stayed at range, patient, precise. Pilot Sarah Quinn watched from her cockpit as an alien cruiser lost thrust and slowly spun away. She did not fire again. "They're done," her wingmate said softly. "Yes," Sarah replied. "They just don't know it yet." Hours passed. Then days. The alien fleet stopped moving forward. Then stopped moving at all. One by one their signals went dark. Some ships powered down, unable to maintain systems. Others attempted emergency jumps and vanished into unknown space, never to be seen again. Human ships held position watching. No cheers sounded. No celebration followed. Lena stood in the command center, hands clasped behind her back. "Any response?" she asked. "No," an officer replied. "All channels silent." She nodded once. "Hold position for another cycle. Then withdraw." "Yes, Commander." Far away on the alien homeworlds, confusion spread. Fleets were not answering calls. Trade routes collapsed. Automated systems failed without explanation. Entire networks that once tied their worlds together simply stopped working. At first, leaders blamed sabotage. Then storms. Then internal failure. But nothing fixed it. Worlds grew quiet. Not destroyed. Not burned. Just empty of movement, of signal, of life that reached outward. From the outside, it looked as if the alien civilization had stepped back from the galaxy and closed the door behind it. Observers from other species noticed the pattern with growing unease. "They're gone," one said. "Gone how?" another asked. "No wreckage. No messages. No refugees. Only silence." Human fleets withdrew as promised. They did not chase. They did not claim territory. They did not move closer to the abandoned systems. Earth made no announcement. Commander Lena Brooks returned to Earth weeks later. Her ship descended through clear skies, over oceans and cities still alive with light. In a quiet room she delivered her report to civilian leaders. "The offer was made," she said simply. "It was refused." One leader nodded. "And the result?" "They vanished," Lena replied. "Not by our hand alone. By their own refusal to stop." There were no cheers in the room. Only understanding. Out in the wider galaxy, stories spread quickly. Some said the humans had erased the alien species completely. Others said the aliens had fled beyond known space. No one could prove either claim. All anyone knew was this: the fleets were gone. The worlds were silent. And Earth had remained distant. Trade slowly returned to old routes. New ones formed, carefully skirting the empty systems. Travelers spoke of strange quiet there, of stations drifting without power, of planets untouched and waiting. No one stayed long. Because silence, after such a war, felt heavier than noise. Human ships passed through the galaxy as they always had. Come. Unmarked. Unassuming. But now, when they did, others gave them space. Not out of hatred. Not out of fear alone. But out of memory. The final battle had been brief. The offer of retreat had been real. The refusal had been final. And when the alien leaders chose pride over survival, the galaxy watched a great power fade without a final scream. Earth said nothing. It didn't need to. The silence carried the message far enough. Centuries passed and the galaxy changed many times. Empires rose and fell. Trade routes shifted. New species stepped into the wider stars, full of questions and hope. Old worlds faded into quiet memory. Yet through all that change, one lesson remained. It was taught in many places in many ways. In a small learning hall on a distant moon, children gathered around a wide screen. They were young, their eyes bright, their voices soft with curiosity. Their teacher, an older guide with calm movements, tapped the screen and brought up an image of a blue planet. "This," the guide said, "is Earth." The children leaned forward. "It looks small," one of them said. "It is," the guide replied. "But size has never told the full story." The image shifted, showing star maps and faded records. Names of old conflicts appeared and disappeared. One name remained longer than the rest, marked with a simple note. "Vanished." Long ago, the guide continued, a powerful species believed Earth was weak. They thought humans were fragile because they argued, because they waited, because they did not rush to war. The children listened closely. They challenged Earth, the guide said. They believed humans would break. A hand rose. Did they? The guide shook their head. No. Humans did not break. They endured. Across the galaxy, in places far from that small hall, similar lessons were taught. Not with fear but with respect. Not as a warning shouted, but as a truth remembered. Humans never chased conquest. They did not build monuments to victory across other worlds. They did not demand loyalty or tribute. Their borders remained modest. Their ships traveled often but quietly. Trade with Earth was fair. Agreements were slow but lasting. Humans asked many questions and listened carefully. Some younger species found this strange. Why don't they rule? One student once asked in another school. Because they don't need to, the answer came. On Earth itself, life continued much as it always had. Cities grew and changed. People lived, worked, loved, and argued. New problems replaced old ones. History was studied but not celebrated loudly. Commander Lena Brooks was remembered in records, but not as a hero of conquest. Pilot Sarah Quinn's name appeared in archives, alongside countless others who had served. Engineer Mark Hale's work lived on in designs and systems still used centuries later. None of them became legends in the way conquerors often did. They did not need to. Earth remained untouched not because it was feared alone, but because it was understood. Travelers who passed near human space noticed the same things generation after generation. Ships moved with care. Stations were well maintained. Emergency signals were answered. Emergency signals were answered quickly, even when the ships in trouble were not human. Human crews helped strangers without asking who they were or where they came from. Repairs were offered. Supplies were shared. Then the humans moved on, expecting nothing in return. This confused many at first. In one busy port far from Earth, an old trader sat with a group of young pilots. They listened as he spoke in a slow, careful voice. "I once asked a human why they helped so freely," he said. "Do you know what they told me?" The pilots shook their heads. They said, "Because someday it might be us." The trader smiled faintly. "That is how they think." Stories like that spread quietly, passed from one traveler to another. Humans did not send out lessons or speeches. Others learned by watching them. The vanished worlds remained untouched. No one claimed them. No one settled them. Ships that passed nearby reported the same strange feeling every time. The systems were intact. Cities stood silent. Stations drifted without power. It was as if time itself had paused. Some scholars tried to study those places. Probes were sent. Drones explored carefully. They found no traps, no weapons, no signs of struggle at the end. Only emptiness. The reports always ended the same way. "'Cause unknown. Return advised." Over time, fewer ships went there. Curiosity faded into caution. On a distant world, a young historian named Caleb Morris worked in a quiet archive. He studied old records, ancient battle logs, and personal journals from the war long ago. Most were plain and simple, written without pride. One entry stayed with him. "We offered them a way out. They refused. We stayed until they could no longer stand against us. Then we left." That was all it said. No praise. No anger. Just fact. Caleb leaned back in his chair and looked at the stars through the wide window. Earth was far from here, but its influence reached even this quiet place. He often wondered why humans were the way they were. The answer, he learned, was not found in the war itself, but in what came before it. Humans had survived their own planet through struggle, mistake, and recovery. They had learned to live with loss. They had learned that shouting did not always change outcomes, but patience often did. That lesson had followed them into the stars. Children across the galaxy grew up hearing the same idea, though it was told differently in every culture. Do not rush humans. Do not corner them. Do not mistake silence for surrender. On Earth, a young girl stood with her grandfather near a quiet lake. The sky above was clear, dotted with distant stars. She pointed upward. "Is it true," she asked, "that people were afraid of us once?" Her grandfather thought for a moment. "Some still are." "Why?" He smiled gently. "Because they don't understand us." She frowned. "Are we dangerous?" He shook his head. "We can be. But we don't want to be." She looked back at the stars. "Then why do they remember?" "Because when we have no choice," he said, "we don't stop halfway." The girl nodded slowly, not fully understanding but feeling the weight in his voice. Earth remained peaceful. Its fleet stayed small and flexible. Its defenses strong but quiet. No great walls of ships guarded its borders. No threats were broadcast. And yet, no one tested those borders again. New species entered the galaxy with excitement and fear. They heard many warnings, many rules. Among them all, one was spoken most carefully. Leave Earth alone. Not because Earth would chase you, but because it would wait. In a distant council chamber, leaders of several species debated a growing conflict between two outer powers. Tensions were high. War seemed likely. One voice spoke up. Should we ask Earth to mediate? The room grew quiet. Another leader nodded slowly. If they agree, the war will not spread. And if they refuse? Someone asked. They rarely do, came the reply. But if they stay silent, we should reconsider everything. Earth was invited. It listened. Its response came weeks later. Not a threat. Not an order. Just terms that favored survival over pride. The conflict ended before it began. This became another quiet example added to many others. Humans did not rule. They did not command. But when they spoke, others listened. And when they did not speak, others listened even more closely. Centuries passed, and the names of the alien species that had challenged Earth slowly faded from common speech. They lived on only in archives, in lessons, and in empty systems marked on star maps. The lesson remained clear, even when details were forgotten. Humanity did not seek to stand above the galaxy. It only refused to be pushed beneath it. Earth remained silent. Earth remained untouched. And the galaxy, shaped by memory and caution, moved forward under the quiet understanding that some strengths did not need to announce themselves to be known.